So the ribbon resides at the top of the Microsoft Word screen, and this is the ribbon here, this rather large panel at the top. The ribbon is broken into various tabs, and you simply choose those tabs by clicking. This is the Design tab, this is the Insert tab, and this is the Home tab. This tab here is coloured blue, the File tab. It's also known as the Backstage. If I click on the blue File tab, I'm presented with options regarding file management. How to open a file, how to create a new file, how to save a file, how to print a file, share a file, and even close a file. So this particular tab, File, is for file management. And to get out of here, you simply click this arrow or you press the Escape key. You don't click the X in the top right corner because that will throw you out of Word. So I'm going to click this arrow to get out of the File tab. Now the other thing you may discover in Word is if you press the Alt key, and there's one either side of your spacebar typically, or you press the key F10, which is a function key, you may see this appear on your screen. And that is these little black letters. These are known as access keys. And if you want to know how to do something using a key, you don't necessarily need to use your mouse. And some people struggle with the mouse, or some people have difficulty with the mouse. So it's important to know how to do things without the mouse. For example, if I wanted to go to File again, notice that File displays an F. So I'd press the letter F. I'm now in File. If I wanted to perhaps print a file, I would hit the letter P, because you can see it there, and I'd press P. And this would then allow me to print the file. I would then be able to say the number of copies I wanted by pressing N, and perhaps I want 2 copies. And if I wanted to press Enter, it would print 2 copies. So access keys are useful, and they may appear if you accidentally hit, say, the Alt or the F10 key. If you want to get rid of the access keys, simply press Alt again or press Escape. Now coming back to the screen, the one thing I notice with this particular screen is I'm not seeing the horizontal and the vertical rulers. And you may not be seeing your rulers either. If you wish to see your rulers, go to the View tab in the ribbon and tick the option Ruler. I now have a horizontal ruler, and on the left here I have a vertical ruler. The rulers are extremely important. They tell you a lot about what's going on with the document. For starters, they tell me about my margins. I can see that there's a grey portion on the left, a grey portion on the right, and even a grey portion at the top of the vertical ruler. And if I was to scroll down, there's a grey portion at the bottom of the vertical ruler. That grey portion is your margin. Notice, for example, that my cursor is blinking sort of down a little bit on the page and in a little bit. I'm not in the top left corner of the page, I'm down a bit and in a bit because of my margins. If I look at the grey part of the horizontal ruler, I can see my left margin is approximately 1, 2, and just over 2.5 centimetres. If I look at my vertical ruler, my top margin is about 1, 2.5 centimetres again. So the ruler, one of the things the ruler does is show you your margins. If you want to check what they exactly are or even change your margins, you would double click the grey part of the ruler, any grey part of the ruler. I'm just going to go for this part because it's handy. If I double click, I'm immediately thrown into page setup. Page setup tells me that this page has been set up with a top margin of 2.54 centimetres, i.e. 1 inch. The top, the bottom, the left and the right are all 2.54 centimetres. I can also see that my page orientation is portrait, which is upright. And there's a preview there. If I wanted to reduce my margins to 2 centimetres, I could do so just by changing it to 2. If I went over to the bottom, I could change that to 2. I could change my left margin to 2 and my right to 2 also. If I then click OK, these will become the margins for the entire or the whole document, and OK. and you can see they're slightly reduced. So the rule is important because it shows what your margins are and allows you to double click the grey part and change your margins, and in fact change anything to do with page setup. Now what I'd like to do is look at the scroll bars. We have a vertical scroll bar on the right hand side of our screen, and if I drag this elevator box down, I've gone to the bottom of effectively a one-page document, and I can drag it up. What I'd like to do is create a bit more text and make it into a 5-page document. Now one trick with Word is entering random text. If I type equals RAND, open bracket, close bracket, and I'll get you to do that as well. If you type that exactly and press enter, you'll end up with some random text, which is helpful when you're playing with Word and learning things. So this is the text I want on page 1, and now I want to insert a page break so that the next bit of text I insert is on page 2. A page break is achieved by holding the Control key and tapping the Enter key. Control Enter is a page break. I can now see visually that I've moved to a second page, and also down here in the lower left of my screen it's telling me I'm on page 2. And I could scroll a little to bring it more into view. If I type equals RAND, open bracket, close bracket, and press enter again, I'll create some more random text on page 2. And now I want to create a third page, so I go Control Enter. So you don't go enter, 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 enter until such time as you slip onto the next page. That's bad practice. What you want to do if you want to move to a new page is press Control Enter. I'm going to create some random text again. Press Enter and press Control Enter. I'm on page 4, and one more time, equals RAND, open bracket, close bracket, enter, and I'm on page, that's the text for page 4, and then Control Enter, and I'm on page 5. So I've got a 5-page document. Now with the 5-page document, it becomes important the larger the document gets to be able to use the vertical scroll bar. So I can scroll up and it's telling me I'm on page 4, page 3, page 2, and page 1, and you can see that showing there. I can scroll down back to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's important to be able to use your scroll bars, and back up again. And then just click in the document. So page breaks and scroll bars are important. Now the status bar is the name of the panel, in my case it's blue, the name of the panel that runs across the bottom of your screen here. It was the status bar that we referred to find out what page we were up to, and this is now saying for me that I've clicked on page 1. It also contains on the status bar things like plus and minus. The plus is great because it allows you, when you click it, to zoom in if you're visually challenged like myself. And now I'm up to 140%. If I hit the minus, I start going down, and I can go down, down, down until I'm 10%. If I drag it, you can start expanding, and so I can start to see 2 pages on one screen the more I drag it. If I drag it midway, I've gone back to 100% actual size. So the zoom slider is very, very useful. Minus, plus, and sliding up and sliding down and in between. You can also click the percentage that's showing there, and you can actually say I want to see 2 pages, 1 times 2, and click 1 times 2 and OK. And that will let you also see 2 pages. You can also see various views of a document down here, which I'm not going to click. I'm going to ask you to stay in the middle of those 3 buttons, which is called print layout, and we'll look at those views later. But the status bar can also tell you a lot more than what we're seeing here. If we were to right click anywhere on the status bar that's not busy, you'll actually see what's been turned on because it'll have a tick. If I go down through this list clicking and ticking all the options, I'm turning on everything I possibly can for my status bar. If I was to untick the last 3, notice the zoom controls have gone in the lower right of your screen. If I was to retick them, notice they're back. So my advice to you is you turn on everything and then you simply click away on the document. Now I have a much busier status bar than I did a minute ago. For example, where the page is shown, I can now see what section I'm in, and I can also see how many pages are in this document. I can see I'm on page 1 of a 5-page document. So if you want to know how big a document is, you simply look down here. If I was to click on any one of these 3 options here, I'd also bring up what they call the navigation pane. The navigation pane allows me to navigate around this document. For example, if I was to click the option Pages, I can now navigate to page 2, 3, 4, and so on, which is very, very handy, and back to page 1. And I can close the navigation pane if I don't want it. So that's a very handy go-to option. When you want to go to a certain page, you can also click the first option here and say you want to go to page 5. I'll just type 5, hit go to, and I'm on page 5, and close. So let's look at that more closely. You have 3 options to the left of your status bar. If you click the first option, you'll bring up the go to. I can type 1 and I can click go to, and I'm on page 1, and then close. And that's verified down here. But if I was to click this one here, page 1 of 5, I bring up the navigation pane, and I can choose pages and navigate between pages this way, and I can close it. And if I go right back to the top of my document and click at the very, very top, what this is telling me is I'm at 2 centimeters. Wherever your cursor is clicked, it's telling you how far down you are at from the top edge of the page. So from the top edge of the page, I'm at 2 centimeters. If I click here, I'm now at 5.1 centimeters from the top edge of the page. And I'm on line 8 in column 1. This option here tells me I have 956 words in this document. And if I was to click it, it would actually tell me also how many pages, how many characters, how many paragraphs, and how many lines. So if you have a word restriction, perhaps you have to write a 2,000 word essay, then use the word count to make sure that you don't exceed your 2,000 words. And I can close that. Here is my language. The language travels with the document. The language influences the spell checker, the grammar checker, and the thesaurus. So when I run a spell checker, I need to make sure that it's using English New Zealand. And if it's not, I can click it and I can change what language I want to use for spell checker, or for grammar checker, or for thesaurus. In New Zealand, we tend to use English New Zealand, but of course, if we're in America, we'd use English United States. But you can see there's a number of languages here. And there's a number of English ones as well. There's English United States, and English New Zealand we saw earlier is here. You can also set this as your default language if it keeps snapping back to English USA. And I'll cancel. And there are other options as well, but that's enough for now. And that is your status bar.